I just took off the other caliper, and I just wanted to make mention that the wheel speed sensor, this is the driver's side here, then it loops under and then goes into the connector. You can see it right there. Yeah, I was just undoing the rear wheel speed sensor switches. So on the passenger side, the little safety tab is facing downward. It's opposite on the driver's side. It would be up on the top here. You gotta get a little tweaker screwdriver in there and gently work this up. Get a little brake cleaner in there. It's probably gonna be filled with mud and crud. And then you have to get in there and start squeezing. There's a little tab you gotta push in right here and just work it gently back and forth and release this thing. So that's what I'm working on now. Okay, so as I said, the tab goes out, and then I had to really squeeze this thing, and I actually heard a click, and then the connector comes out of the speed sensor. So you gotta just be careful with it. And then there's gonna be a nut right here. I forget, I'll figure that out. Maybe 8 millimeter or 6 millimeter, and then the sensor will come out. So the rear calipers are taken off. It's an 18 millimeter head bolt right here. 2 of them. I just kept them with the caliper. Tie wrapped them to the sway bar. Disconnected the end links on both sides, just kind of getting stuff out of the way. And then the speed sensors on both sides have been removed. So I'm just doing a little bit of the ticky-tick stuff. These are the TerraFlex speed bump extensions right here. I'm going to be taking those off, because what happens is for the upper control arms, that bolt right there, you can't get it out to clear the control arm. So I'm going to remove the bump stop extensions on both sides of the rear axle. That rotor right there can be pulled off. Same thing on the driver's side. Caliper up out of the way, bolts with it. Sway bar end link disconnected from the axle, up out of the way. Speed sensor right here, been unplugged. Carefully route it through, and I just have it gently tie wrapped to one of the brake lines, up out of the way. And the same thing on this side, TerraFlex speed bump extension right here. These are 1/4 bolts. It'll be 1/4 of 5/16. It might be 5/16, so it'll be a 1/2 inch head right here on both sides, the back and the front. And then this extension will come right out. And that gives me access to the bolt that goes through the upper control arm mount on the axle. Okay, this is my TerraFlex bump stop extension. This sat right up in here. It's got 2 5/16 bolts, one in the back, one in the front, goes through there. So obviously these needed to be removed. This is the driver's side. And what this does is it gives me clear, good access to the upper control arm bolt that goes through here. So just doing a little bit of disassembly today. Nothing too crazy. That I'm working a lot of hours, so we're just going to do a little piece at a time every day, and little by little this thing will get all set. And then obviously I'm going to be lifting up the vehicle again and putting the jack stands under the frame, and then taking control of the rear axle with the floor jack as I loosen up the control arms and start lowering this down, and eventually separate the whole assembly from the Jeep. I will end up taking these rotors off, reversing them, putting a couple lug nuts on here, and using it as a slide hammer to pull the driver's side and passenger side axle shafts out. And then my plan is, once the rear axle is fully removed from the vehicle, where I can get at it good, I will then take the locker, the whole carrier assembly out, leaving just the pinion gear. So I'll be taking the bearing caps off and the shims, and there's an electrical connection that goes through a gasketed piece on the back of that axle housing for the rear locker. So that all needs to be taken apart too. Okay, you can see that right here on this base was where the bump stop extension was. So that's been removed on both sides to come in contact with the rubber jounts up here, okay? So now we've got this e-brake assembly. So I take my e-brake off. So now I'm going to end up pulling this right here with some needle nose pliers, and it's like a letter S. and basically you have to pull it and take it out of this, and then it'll come out of here, and then we've got this little metal piece right here that just kind of locks into place. I'll end up squeezing this and working this e-brake cable off the assembly. So it's really just held right here on both sides. Right here, goes through here, and then hooks up onto the e-brake. So I've got that side to do. This is the driver's side and the passenger side. All right, so with my hand, basically, I was able to pull the cable. See the flexibility in the cable, and then just work it out of this piece right here. This little eye bolt piece of metal right here. This is what engages your e-brake when that cable is pulled. And then we've got this bracketry right here, a little metal clip. I've got to pull it out of here, and I have to duplicate this on the driver's side, or excuse me, on the passenger side. Okay, so what happens here is the e-brake cable has these expandable little pieces of metal. There's 3 of them. And you can see that the hole that it goes through is right there. So you got to just kind of compress those 3 prongs with a screwdriver and then pull inboard. And the cable just pulls right out of the hole like that, and then it's free of the axle. Okay, so the passenger side e-brake came out of the little eye bolt that connects to the e-brake. And then you've got the same type of little clip arrangement. You got 3 little prongs you got to squeeze in and then work it out of that hole right there. So some of the smaller things have been disconnected from the axle tube, which is really good. I should also do the vent, and then there's an electrical connection on top of the locker. Okay, you can see in the photo there, removal of the axle tube vent hose right there. So I just run a hose clamp on mine, so I undid that and pull it off the axle. So the only other little crazy thing that needs to be unplugged would be the feed wire to the locker itself.